Hey everyone, Lauren from A Girl and Her Wool here. So today I'm going to be just sitting here knitting and chatting with you about the collaboration that I did with Ambah O'Brien for the different advent calendar, or the different advent patterns. So I just want to talk about my experience with going through all of that, give you a little bit more behind the scenes look of being an indie dyer, and then talk about some of the things that happened along the way while Ambah and I were collaborating on some of these advent patterns. So if you're interested in that, stick around, and also make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss videos like this in the future. So while I sit and chat here, I'm working on my Tammy Gore mystery knit along, so the Golden Dusk mystery knit along. This has been done for a while, so I really feel like it's okay to show it. I'm gonna give a little peek of what I'm up to. So if you don't want to see it, here's your warning. I'm about to hold it up and I'll let you know when I'm done showing it. I did do a little vlog about both this and the Stephen West mystery knit along that I'm working on. I'm working on both of them kind of at the same time. So I've been doing clue 1 of both of them at the same time, then clue 2. And so I did a little vlog after I finished clue 2. Since then, I've monogamously been working on the Tammy Gore one. I'm seriously so excited about this one. So I haven't picked up the Stephen West one since, but that's okay. And so here is what I'm up to on the Tammy Gore one. So again, I'm on clue 3. So clue 2 ended, and you can see the whole thing here. Clue 2 ended right after those stripes. So this was the end of clue 2. Clue 3 kind of started with this little stockinette section. And hold on, I just dropped some stitches like usual. And it went into, it brought in color 4. So I'm really excited that color 4, you can see kind of this darker kind of auburn color here. So some more slip stitches, stockinette, and then really cool section that had short rows in it. And so again, this is like quite the stitch sampler. You do everything in this. If you are new to like knitting, or you're new to like brioche or lace or short rows, this is such a good way to get a little taste of some of those stitches. So highly recommend working on this pattern. So if you did look away, it's now safe to look back. I won't show the pattern anymore. But kind of back to the topic at hand here, I wanted to just talk through some of my experiences with this collaboration with Ambah. And so if you're new, I do have a shop, A Girl and Her Wool, and you can get there by going to agirlandherwool.com. And one of the things that I really enjoy having in my shop are mini skein sets, and in particular gradient sets. So I have been offering gradient sets, I think, for almost as long as I've had my shop open. It's just really fun way to play with color and put two colors together and kind of just go from one to the other. I've really been enjoying doing that. And I don't even remember exactly when I launched my rose gold gradient set, but I think it was sometime last winter, so winter 2019 into 2020. I kind of launched my rose gold gradient set, and then that's also when I launched Pinot Noir and Golden Hour and the rose gold colorway, just good wintry colors. And the rose gold gradient set got a lot of attention on social media. So it was probably one of my most liked kind of business shop photos at the time. People really seemed to take to it. People loved it. I got a lot of compliments on it. But to be completely honest, it didn't sell for a very long time. So I remember talking about that and saying that, yeah, rose gold is really popular in terms of social media, but no one actually ever bought it. And that was fine because, again, I was a new shop, so I opened up in early 2019. So this was just, a few months later, and Etsy drives a lot of my business. And so how Etsy works is once a listing starts selling, that's when Etsy will start showing it more. And so at the time, once one set sold of it, that's when it really took off. So since Etsy at the time, and still does, drive it was driving a lot of my business then. Until a listing really starts selling, Etsy doesn't show it so much in its listings. And at the time I wasn't paying for ads or anything on Etsy. So it really was, my listings would kind of show up more when a colorway started selling. And so that's kind of how my shop worked, where once I had one color sell, it would just take off and I would sell a lot of it. And the same worked for rose gold. So it really was a test in patience. I really liked rose gold, the gradient set, and as you know, it got a lot of attention on Instagram, and so I just kind of kept it up in the shop. At the time I was solely dye to order, so it didn't really cost me anything to have it listed in the shop. Kept it up, and then once it started selling regularly. I was constantly dyeing up rose gold sets. I couldn't keep up with the rose gold orders. Every time I finished dyeing up the next batch of them, more had sold and I would dye up more. So was dyeing up a lot of rose gold. It was anytime I was going to dye, I was dyeing up something for rose gold. So once it started selling, it really did take off. And then the same night that I did the virtual trunk show, I noticed that Ambah O'Brien favorited my shop on Etsy. Etsy tells you when people favorite your shop and your items, and I don't look at that too much, but I did happen to notice that happened. And so I remember we were out picking up dinner. I think I wanted to do celebratory takeout for getting through a virtual show, and I noticed that, and so I said, when I get home, I'll message her back because this is a great opportunity. She favorited my shop. I need to reach out to her to see if she wants to design something with my yarn. And before we even got home, she had messaged me basically saying something similar, saying that she really liked the gradients that I had in my shop and would love to work with me for some of her Advent patterns. I think by this point I was on such a high from the trunk show and from that I just couldn't believe it. I just remember saying, this is real, this business is real, this is really happening. It just, the whole day in and of itself just felt like I was finally a yarn dyer. So I wrote back to Ambah immediately saying that I would love to work with her, and she had been eyeing both my rose gold set, which again by this point rose gold was super popular. It was a big seller, but Ambah also was interested in the fairy shadow gradient, which goes from a deep dark green into a deep dark purple. And she said, I don't know which one I want to use, can I take both? And we came up with an agreement, and she honestly is so generous as the designer that she is. She was kind of selling herself on what she felt like she could bring to me and my business, and I was like, oh please, I know. She was a designer. I have to say, I don't subscribe to too many newsletters because, as you know, they start to build up, but I've always been subscribed to her newsletter. She is one of the designers that I have followed since I discovered Ravelry and became more of a knitter with a capital K. And so just her messaging me was enough. It was I know. So she asked if I could expand those gradient sets into 24 skein sets each. And my reaction was, yes, of course I can. And basically messaged her back with that, yes, I can definitely do that. That'll be fine. I think that will work really well. And we kind of talked a little bit about, did we want just the current gradient, or did we want to add stuff to it? And it was the current gradients as they are, just kind of expanded out. So I was able to expand both sets into 24 skein sets, and it actually went well on my first run through. So when I dye gradients, I typically do one first run through where I feel like I'm dyeing kind of the next skein along, and you can tell it was a dyeing day today. The next skein along, but sometimes after the yarn dries, some are a little too similar, and then there'll be a big jump or something like that. So I typically have a second run through when I'm first creating the formulas for a gradient set. and that's completely normal and fine for me. But I remember for this, I think because it's 24 skeins and every single skein had to be a pretty small jump, I remember it went really well. I think there were only like a handful, like very few, maybe like 5 skeins in total for both sets that I changed out and dyed up fresh skeins for. But for the most part, it really went okay on the first run through. So I felt like I stuck to my promise of, yes, I can do this. Like I actually was able to do it. And I was immediately obsessed with both sets. And so I think the hardest part about it was finding the right angle to be able to take a 24 skein set photo. But able to do that, shipped off the skeins off to Australia, and honestly, I kind of had no expectations. I was like, I'm just sending this along. I'm happy to just send it along. And if nothing comes of it, nothing comes of it. But I was content at that moment. So a few months later, like really, it was probably 2 months, I think, I got an email from Ambah saying that she received the yarn. And I was like, how did it take so long? But with the pandemic and everything was taking much longer to get everywhere. And so the yarn had arrived safely in Australia, which was great. And at that point, again, like no obligation, didn't think too much of it, just kind of let it go. And I think it was a couple more months after that she emailed me the pictures of what she had designed. And I was surprised to see that she actually designed 2 patterns, so the Radvent cowl and the Radvent wrap. So instead of choosing between the 2 gradients, she ended up using both, which is amazing. And I was blown away. Like I can't describe it any other way as like, I just still need to wake up from this. Someone please just pinch me already. At the same time that she had reached out to me about doing these advent kits for some of her patterns, I had been planning to do advent calendars myself. So my first year in business, I didn't offer up any advent calendars. I was way too new. There was just no way that I was going to be able to do it. But for the that's a lie. It was my first year doing it. It was my first year doing it is that true? No, we're in 2020, no. Okay, so for 2019, I did not offer up any advent calendars. So around the same time that she had messaged me, I was already kind of in my head planning what kind of advent calendars did I want to offer up in the shop that year. And so when she and I were talking, I didn't necessarily want to only offer up kits for her patterns because I knew it wouldn't be released until around now, and I didn't, everyone would have really purchased their advent calendars by then. So even though people would probably want the kits she designed it out of, I felt like I was limiting myself to selling other advent calendars to people who would be buying them earlier. And so kind of getting a sneak peek into what she was looking for her advents, which she always has the top selling advent patterns, I decided to offer up the standard like mystery mini one every day, where you kind of open up a mystery mini every single day. But I also offered up a gradient version as well, knowing that it would work well with what she designed. Theoretically, assuming she ended up designing it with my yarn or someone else's, I had to imagine she was planning a pattern with a gradient. That was why she probably found my gradients on Etsy. And so that was why I kind of offered up both of those options, one, the mystery mini and the gradient, because I wanted to have something that would work with her pattern. And then also kind of the average advent calendar that I knew people typically look for. So so when I got the pictures from Ambah of what she had designed, and knowing that she was actually using my yarn for not only 1 but 2 patterns, I was thinking I would only be dyeing up one of these gradient sets for one of her kits, but it ended up being both. I realized I needed to make sure I got the advent calendars that I sold out sooner, before these patterns were released, because I didn't want to have both happening at once. And so that was a big reason of why I took my vacation when I did. That was because I just wanted to have a week devoted to getting my advent calendars out before these patterns dropped. And actually, the Radvent cowl pattern dropped, became live on that Friday of my vacation, which was nice because I really did have the calendars done by then. The last thing I had to do was just put them in a bag, put a shipping label on it, and get it to the post office. So by the time the first pattern was live, I had finished up my advent calendars. And so going into these, I really didn't know what to expect. I still had the same philosophy that a lot of people had already ordered their advent calendars by then, and that they would purchase Ambah's patterns to use the calendars that they had bought. And so I really didn't know if I should pre-dye these sets. Should I do it as a pre-order? Like how should I do it? I didn't know if I pre-dyed it, should I dye 5 kits up, 10 kits, 20? Like I really didn't know what to do. So I ended up doing a little bit of market research. So I went to some other indie dyers on Instagram, and I looked at their Instagram feed to see what happened when they posted about patterns being designed in their yarn. And I did this because I don't personally know any other indie dyers. I don't have anyone I can really talk to figure out how I should be doing these things. I really just have to use my own best judgment and, again, market research. So I looked at a few different indie dyers who, again, had patterns released by, and more popular, so that way, they could have had an influx of patterns. And they always seem to do pre-orders. So that's what I ended up doing. I posted both of these as pre-orders, and I knew what stock I had available. I didn't want to oversell anything, but I kind of just decided to let people order them as they want up until a certain date when I started dyeing it, and see how many I got. I figured that I could always cut it off, but that way I wasn't limiting it to, I thought I'd only get 5 people to order this and all 5 sold out, and so that's it, sales are done. But by doing the pre-order, I was able to really plan ahead a little bit more, which is good too. So the Fairy Shadow one, which it's actually the Fairy I renamed it the Fairy Garden gradient set because Ambah just used the first 12 skeins of that set, so she just used the green portion, so I called that the Fairy Garden set. That one is smaller because it's just 12, but Ambah actually designed that pattern using my sock yarn, but she held it double, so it's technically a DK weight pattern, but in order to simplify things, again, I was doing this as a pre-order, so if I got a lot of orders, I had to dye them all up. So I didn't sell any variations. I sold the exact kits that Ambah would use. So originally I thought maybe I would offer it on DK, and I could also offer it on a different colorway if I wanted to. But one thing that I've learned in doing all this is that sometimes you just have to keep things simple, and so I decided I'm just gonna sell the kits as she used it. So it's fingering weight yarn, people will hold it double, but it'll work it up exactly how she designed it to be. And in terms of the day that the Radvent wrap was listed, so that was the rose gold one, I was just completely blown away. My shop did really well that day, and just having a pattern on the top 10 in Ravelry with my yarn, so looking at the top 10, the hot right now list on Ravelry and seeing my yarn there was just incredible, and I have screenshot a whole lot of that as well. So anyway, so here we are now. I'm getting ready to finish dyeing up rose gold as well as get all these orders shipped out. what worked out nicely is that Ambah put the patterns live, but they're really placeholders. So it kind of took my feeling of guilt away of getting these out ASAP, to know that people don't even have the patterns, and they won't have the patterns until November 30th. And so it did kind of make me feel okay with the pre-order period and getting those out. So working with Ambah really has been, you know, a really big dream come true. She really took a chance on working with someone who basically didn't have a following, was very new. I felt like she was really taking a chance on me, and I feel like I have to remember that as I kind of have my shop, in that, you know, it's nice to collaborate and boost each other up. It doesn't matter necessarily always like who the other person is. It's just always about like, let's collaborate and create something great together. And it was really an honor to have her design with my yarn. She created beautiful patterns. I can't wait. I'm actually going to be dyeing up the Radvent, or knitting the Radvent wrap with my gradient advent calendar. So not the rose gold. I'm going to do it with my mystery gradient. It's gonna work really well with that, and so I'm excited to knit that up. So yeah, make sure you check into my Instagram, A Girl and Her Wool, in my stories, because I will be showing what that looks like every day there. I will also be posting what my mystery mini advent looks like, so I'll post a picture of each one of those minis as well. So that's kind of my behind the scenes look into a collaboration with a designer, and I'm at the end of a row, which worked out well. I mean, I knit a few rows of this while we were talking, but that was kind of my behind the scenes look. I thought it would be interesting for people to hear how kind of some of these collaborations work. And you know, like you expect in the knitting community, everything was very nice and friendly, and Ambah was great in keeping contact with me. I felt like I was trying to keep in contact with her during the dye process and sending her pictures of what the gradient looked like before packaging it up and sending it off to her. And then she was great at communicating with me where she was in her design process and everything with the patterns getting released. So make sure you check out her knit along. She has her Advent knit along in her Ravelry group, and her patterns I think are all on sale for the month. I snagged up quite a bit of Radvent patterns. Particularly I really want to do the Radvent blanket, but I also picked up some of her other patterns that I'm interested in. So I knit up the Kentia hat. I always feel like I'm saying that wrong. Kentia or Kentia hat, and she designed a shawl of the similar pattern, so I wanted to knit that up, so I also picked that up. And then there was one other, which I won't remember the name of, but I'll put it here, that I also, it's just so beautiful, I want to knit it up. And I swear, I have been eyeing her patterns forever. You know how people have skeins of yarn that are like too special to use and they can never find the right project to work on? I'm like the opposite. I feel like there's no yarn that I can ever find that's like perfect for her patterns. Like I'll ruin her pattern if I knit up the wrong yarn, which is why I've like not knit many of her patterns, is because I just always feel like the yarn does not do it justice. It's like the opposite effect. The patterns are too special and the yarn is never right. So anyway, hey look, the yarn I dyed I guess was right for it. So it all comes full circle. So anyway, I am just so excited about this collaboration. If you haven't checked it out, go check out the Radvent cowl and the Radvent wrap. Again, the listings are still available in my shop. At this point, I think the pre-order for rose gold came down today, or is coming down tonight. So if you're watching this on Tuesday, it's coming down because I've started dyeing. There are some that will still be listed in stock because I am dyeing up extras, but the fairy garden ones for the cowl, those ones are ready to go. So if you order those, they'll ship in just a couple of days. So anyway, if you have any other questions about collaborations or anything of the sort of any of my Advent experiences, make sure you comment below and let me know, and I'll be happy to answer them either here on a future video. Again, make sure you subscribe. I'm going to be doing a series coming up soon, a little teaser here that's a little bit more about kind of the business side of these things. So make sure you don't miss those, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.